And we are live. Welcome to the Connected for Real podcast. I am Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and I'm a marriage coach for women in business. And what I love to do is I love to take different topics and how they relate to marriage. And I like to go really, really deep. So today is going to be an amazing topic. And we called it The Eyes of Love. And it's with Karen Leba Baker. And she's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to get right into it. So, Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Bat-Chen. I love seeing you, and I love knowing that we're so far away yet so close. I'll introduce myself. So I'm from Houston. That's where I grew up, Houston, Texas. Third generation Texan. I've lived in various places in the world, both overseas out of the United States and around the United States. Right now, I live in Austin, Texas, and I like to swim and hike. I like to be with my 18-year-old son. I'm currently divorced, and I have been an educator. I guess I could call myself a teacher of consciousness. And where my attention has gone is the misunderstandings between men and women, or the masculine and the feminine, or Zachar and Nekeva, or Shakti and Shiva. There's many different names for the polarized energies that exist in the universe. And I have been a student of that for many years, teaching women how to harmonize their communications with men. And that's actually what fascinates me. I'm also an author. I've written a book with my friend Mia Sage, and that book is called 23 Innovations in Selling. That's me down there when I used to have my married name. And she's also the author of a book called How to Talk to Men, which I just want to plug because it's a profound read. It's lighthearted, really tells it the way it is between those two polarities and how to bring them closer together and then gracefully let them drift apart, because that is kind of the order of things. And I've just been studying what works in masculine, feminine communication, practicing it, making all the mistakes. Believe me, all the mistakes. And at this point, I reckon I'll probably make a few more. But I have mercy and compassion on myself, even when I make mistakes. And I love to talk about the eyes of love because it's really a choice.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean by a choice?
Well, I was really tough with one of my clients today. He wasn't keeping his word about an agreement that we made. And instead of addressing the agreement, he launched into a long list of complaints he has about his life. So I said, I am actually not in the mood to hear any complaining today. What are you going to do about the agreement that you made? And what I mean by that is that he has a choice whether he puts his attention on complaining or he puts his attention on being grateful. Either one of those is a valid choice. They'll just give extremely different outcomes. And so seeing through the eyes of love is also a choice. It's easy when they're little and they're not talking back, but then they grow up and they have their own opinions. And then, of course, when we have a spouse or a close and intimate partner, or even a business partner, we see things differently. We're different humans with different sets of experiences. And it is invariable that the energy of conflict will arise, but it doesn't mean we have to act on the conflict. And the actual opposite energetic of conflict is love. Conflict is when you're in your heart. Should I do this or should I do that? Which answer is right? That's called being conflicted. And if we're conflicted in our hearts, then we bring the conflict out into our environment, as within, so without. And so choosing to see with the eyes of love is a practice, literally a practice. Like you said, you do yoga and you have a swimming practice on Friday, or movement practice in water. So choosing to see through the eyes of love is a practice.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love everything you're saying. And when we were in New York, we went with the whole family on, I had like 6 speaking engagements. My husband was selling his book. It was really fun. It was right before COVID. And I'm so grateful to God that we did that. And we got back to Israel 4 days before the lockdown. But during that month, we had so much fun. We took them all around to all the different science museums because that was the goal. It was to get to every single science museum in New York. I don't think we went to all of them. Yeah, we didn't get to all of them, but we did a really good amount, and everybody has really good memories. And we were waiting for the subway, and the wrong train arrived. You know how like the same platform has multiple numbers coming to it. And I told everyone, hold back, hold the kids, everybody back, the older ones, keep the younger ones from jumping in. We're not getting on this train. And the train opens the doors, closes the doors, and leaves. And then right behind him, the next train comes and it's the right number. So I'm like, okay, this is the one. We all get into it. We make sure everybody is here. And then the doors close. And I look at the kids and I say, did you see how awesome that was? And they're like, what? By this point, they know their mother already. So they're waiting for something profound. We didn't get on that train. It opened the doors. It was waiting for us to get onto it. We didn't get it. We didn't get on it because it's not taking me to where I want to go. So why would I even get there? So you're saying conflict will arise because the person has that in their heart. They're not really in peace with themselves. There's something going on. They're going to open it up for you to, interact with it. Now you get a choice. You're going to get into the train or not. And you could totally not. And I've caught myself asking this question when conflict arises between me and my husband or other situations. Obviously, we have a perfect marriage, so you have nothing to worry about.
Wait, what about that expression that we always teach what we need to know?
Of course. Are you kidding? I'm having like the biggest aha moment week ever since Sunday. It's just been like aha moment after aha moment that I am going through all these things right now because this is what I need to learn in order to teach it. And it's amazing. So now I'm having this thing about perfection and how I want to be so perfect, but really if I was perfect, nobody would want to learn from me. So it's really interesting. So I'm very relatable. I have a husband and he's very normal and I am a very normal wife. I get on his nerves often. And he'll say something like, so why didn't you do it? Or, whatever it is that he has complaints about. And I really have, like you said, it's a practice. I've gotten really good at being like, you're right. Thank you. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, she didn't get on. So should we get on a different train now? Right? Like, which train is coming next? It's like, okay, so what do you want to have for dinner? Right? Like a different train will come because you closed the doors on the other train. Like you just didn't get on it.
So wise. I will use that metaphor. It's a really good story.
Thank you.
Sometimes people say, but, how do they say it? Like, well, I just can't help it. I can't help but argue. Like, I can't help it, which is putting all of the power outside of herself.
Right.
And saying that who she's choosing to argue with has all the power. And then I just ask the question, have you ever sung in a choir? Have you ever sung in a choir, Bat-Chen?
Yes, I have. I love choir. I was in choir in high school, the entire
I also love choir. I was an alto. You can probably tell.
I had a lot of solos. I really enjoyed it. I love choir.
Oh, so you have a good voice. Maybe in a minute you'll sing for our listeners. That would be really
fun. Totally. My kids just made fun of me the other day.
Well, of course they did. That's their job. They make fun of everything. That's their job. But I say, well, when you're singing in a choir and the person next to you is off key, can you still hold your note? Well, yeah, of course. Oh, so when they're arguing, that's an off key note. You could still hold your note, whatever it is. But it's important to know what is
But
our
that's
note.
a skill. But that's a skill because not everybody can hold their note, and it takes awareness and
Yes.
it takes practice. Like it really is not everyone. Not everyone can hold their note when somebody else is off key. A lot of people are affected by it and will go off key slowly without realizing. And that's how much other people's energies affect us if we don't prepare, if
Oh
we're
my
not
gosh,
aware.
completely.
So I
So
think this
that's
is
sort
learning.
of the process of becoming an adult. You know, another one of my clients was complaining about how it's Christmas and nothing's happening. And so I said, well, what would make it feel like Christmas for you? He said, well, if we were watching Christmas movies and if there were piles of presents under the tree and if I had a tree and various other things. And so I said, well, how did that used to happen? And he said, well, my mom and dad would do that. And I said, well, this is what it's like to be an adult is we have to learn the skills of adulting. When we're an adult and we want Christmas, we have the responsibility to make Christmas. If we want harmony in our marriage, we have the responsibility to make harmony in marriage. And once we get clear on what our posture is on it, then we have the chance to invite others into the game with us. And so when you say it's a skill that not everyone has, that's right. It's an adulting skill to respond rather than react. A child has no choice but to react because they have no emotional self-control, not
Right.
as a judgment, but as a fact. Children don't have emotional self-control. And that's also, by the way, why they're victims, because they don't have self-autonomy or self-control yet. But as we grow, we can outgrow becoming the victim because now we actually do have a choice as long as we're not telling ourselves the victim story.
Right.
Which is an easy story to fall into. It's a human dynamic story.
Of course, it's also a protective mechanism because as long as you have a story, you don't have to do anything about it.
Say more about that.
What would you like me to say? As long as you
Give
are,
us an example.
there's so many examples. So first thing that came up for me when you were talking, by the way, is that one of the things that I speak about is that you can single-handedly change your marriage because
One hand,
yes, one hand, single-handedly,
the other hand tied behind your back. I agree with you. I want to hear what you have to say about that too.
just you. The biggest downfall to marriage that I see is when a woman takes her husband by the ear and says, "You need to come with me and we're going to get help." And it is so painful for the husband because he has no idea what he did wrong. He doesn't understand why he has to go to the principal's office. He doesn't feel like the principal's on his side. So he feels attacked by two people now. And his ego is just like all over the place. Like, what happened? He is completely shocked. He has no idea. Like, he really thinks he did his best. He doesn't understand. And the worst thing you could do is bring him into that room and be like, you see, we have a problem. We have to deal with it. It's like, maybe things aren't great, but like, it's not that bad. Like, they're really, really not, they're not there. They have no idea what you're talking about. When you take them off the hook and be like, you're fine. You do your thing. I free you to be you. I'm going to take responsibility for my life. So I'm not happy, not because you're not making me happy, but because something is going on here that I need to deal with. You're not meeting my needs because I'm not aware of my needs and I need to get really clear on what I want. You're not, whatever. Like, I detach myself from being dependent on him for my happiness, and suddenly everything opens up. And the coolest thing that happens in my mastermind is women who signed up with me for a year. When I sell my program, I say, like, the first 3 months, you're going to get resistance. Your husband's going to be like, why do you need this thing? It's so expensive. You're going this, you're doing that, blah, blah, blah. You could just do it for so much cheaper. You do it yourself. Why are you paying someone else to, right? Like, they have this like real man mentality, very square. And it's fine because it's them. Then you don't tell them to change anything. You're completely taking them off the hook. Suddenly, you're a much nicer person because you're not naggy. You're not annoyed. You're not frustrated with them. You're not taking it out on them. You're taking responsibility over yourself. It's like, okay, what just happened? And by 6 months, they're dying to know what you're doing because they want to do it too. I have my beta people are so blown away by the way that their husband reacts to what they're doing. One of the guys who said no twice, he said no twice to signing up, and by the third time he said, fine, do what you want. He is now reading her entire journal of everything she wrote as notes of the entire 6 months, because he wants to know, he wants to find what is the gold that you learned that made you transform in such a short period of time, right? It's like blowing their minds. And the best part of it is nobody told them to do anything. Like, we trust that you will figure it out, because if you know men and male and female energies, the male energy is really about, I know I will figure it out. I just need to go into my man cave and figure it out. So taking him out of his man cave to go into the lion's den and like fight for his whatever is not going to help him figure it out. It's more like, okay, you go do your thing and I'll do my thing, and when we reconvene, like, and you see my progress, you're going to be like, oh, I want in. So that's how you single-handedly take control over your situation. Now, you were talking about the story, and the first time I heard about having a story was from Byron Katie from the work. She has her whole book called, What's Your Story, or something like that.
Loving What Is.
Yeah, Loving What Is. And she has a book also with story. But she says it like,
who would you be without your story?
There you go. Yeah. And it's like you're swimming in the pool. So as long as you're in the pool, you're swimming in the pool. You can't really see it as a different entity than you because you're in it. And the second you take yourself out and you're willing to be like, okay, I'm looking at it as a separate thing from me, right? Like, you were never part of the pool, but you were in the pool so much that you can't grasp what, the amount of water and the amount of everything that's going on, right? Like, you get out of the pool and you look at the pool. And by the way, I had a really interesting personal experience where we did this exercise where you dive into your emotion, like that one emotion, and you like dive into it and you go deeper and deeper into it and really unpack it to really get it all out, and then you're willing to let it go. And when I said, okay, I'm willing to let it go, and I came out, I came out of the ocean, and I'm standing outside on the sand and I'm drying off, and I see the hugeness of the ocean. And I feel like, whoa, I'm so proud of myself that I was in that and I came out of that. Like, it's limitless. There is so much of this emotion, but now I'm not in it. I'm just outside of it. Yeah, I have some drops on me and I'm like still not perfect, but oh my gosh, this is a completely different situation now.
Well, and really is. What a beautiful way to experience having it and not having it.
Right. So when you're out of the story and you take responsibility for just being without it, what does that look like? And how is it affecting your life now? Like, one of the things that made the biggest impression on me was when one of my friends didn't tell, like, we got to college and she didn't tell anyone that her father had passed away from, I think it was cancer. I think leukemia. And I didn't find out until the second year because I had just met her and she's decided that she's not telling anyone and she's just going to be like everyone else. And for the first year and a half of college, like pretty much no one knew that she had a story, and it helped her free herself from the story because there was so much, pity and this and that and just victimhood, as a kid who lost his parent and now she's, always getting the, that like look like, oh, poor thing. She was suddenly like everyone else and everybody was treating her like her, and then anytime something went wrong and she'd be like, yeah, well, I don't have a father. She'd like, no, 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 that's okay. I'm okay, and it was conscious what she did, but it was mind blowing how much it freed her from the story to then be able to like grow herself into a completely, responsible adult, like you said, it just helped her
Well,
grow
yeah,
up.
she became the creator instead of the victim.
Yes, it helped
The
her grow
creator
up.
of
And
her
it was
story.
powerful. It was powerful. And I was like, no, you should tell people. It's really important that we all know. But I think it was a good move for her. This is very personal.
She
Don't,
knew, right?
yeah. You have
She
to be
knew
able
what
to
was
handle
right
it.
for her. There was a
Yeah.
story that you were speaking of a moment ago. I wish I could remember what it reminded me of.
The swimming in the ocean.
There was something else about one of my clients. Oh, okay. So when you say single-handedly take responsibility for your marriage, so I also do a retreat. It's called the Embrace Retreat. And the Embrace Retreat is about different communication patterns, or I call them cadences, because I really do teach communication like it's music.
Mhm.
So learning to sing in harmony with others is the key to good communication, because once you are harmonizing with them, and different systems call it creating rapport or pacing and leading or future pacing. Once you have that harmony, then you can take the conversation in the direction where you want it to go. So she came to one day of the retreat. I think it was the day, where I said, arguing destroys love.
Mm.
And then I went through all of the exercises that we do and what's the tone of arguing. It's not the same as conflict, actually. It's more the tone of pressure, the tone of aggression. Um, Conflict is when you're feeling in your heart that you don't know which way to go. And so you have to have conflict on the outside. But arguing is actually when you do know which way to go and you have to have conflict on the outside.
Mm.
So,
That's so amazing what you just said. Can you just like slow down there for a second? When you have conflict on the inside, what you're doing is you're looking for clarity on the outside instead of looking for clarity on the inside.
that's a
It's
great way to
you're
say it.
you're looking for the answers outside of you. And so it's almost like you have to manifest the conflict in order to see how it resolves itself so that you can then go take that in. And that's a really long way of trying to solve a problem.
A really
Right?
long way.
Yeah.
Not to mention an alienating way. When you feel conflicted, it's different than alienation. Alienation is what causes us to argue, but conflict is what causes us to see everything as not aligned with us.
Mm.
So she realized that she had been arguing with her husband about something. They have two children. They're both professionals who work long hours. And she had been arguing with him about his responsibilities towards the children as per picking them up from school, preparing them dinner. And the argument was getting them nowhere. He hadn't changed at all. And she was still browbeating him to do the thing. Anyway, she spent that one day in the retreat and she just decided, if arguing destroys love, I'm going to stop arguing.
Mm.
Can't afford that. Like, I do love this man, even though we argue, I'm going to stop arguing. So about 2 weeks after the event, I called to ask, so how's it going? What have you used from the retreat? How has the retreat impacted your life? Thank you for coming. She said, well, I heard that expression, arguing destroys love. It really hit home for me. And I just decided to stop arguing. Well, within a couple of days, without me arguing or mentioning anything, he started picking the kids up from school and he started feeding them dinner. But I wasn't saying anything. And so
Honestly, what do we think? Like, as a parent also, do you think that your kid doesn't know? Like, you have told them at least 500 times, right? Like, they know what the right thing is. They know, but we think that if we keep reminding them, it's going to change something. It's so powerful. Like,
powerful, right?
I wonder how he figured out what I wanted. Well, you've been saying it for almost like 600 years.
And so arguing is pressuring for your way. Arguing is pressuring to get your way. So she stopped pressuring him. And it's a skill that we teach in the retreat, to stop pressuring, to take the pressure off. And then he could do what he probably wanted to do all along, but her behavior was preventing him from doing the very thing that he wanted to do. He wanted to make her happy, but she was so busy arguing that she couldn't even be happy. Because arguing and happy, those are very far apart.
You know what's funny? There's this one of my favorite jokes about marriage. It's like the guy says to his wife, I said I was going to change the light bulb. You don't have to remind me every 6 months, right? It's so funny to me because it's exactly how it is. Like, they know, and they just want to do it on their terms.
Yeah, some things are, I want to use that. That's really good. I wanted to say about some things are worth doing ourselves. And then they're worth not holding a grudge about. They're worth just accepting, well, if I want the light bulb changed, I can actually pick up the light bulb. I can actually change it. Or I was thinking about picking a mosquito in my office here, talking about picking up clothes off the floor. Well, so he doesn't mind clothes on the floor. Or actually, I have friends, a couple, and she always leaves everything on the floor. She just drops it. Even her pizza box, she drops it on the floor. Yes, this is a grown woman. And he likes things tidy, and he loves her, and he appreciates their harmony. So why would he argue about it? He just picks it up because he likes it that way. Why would anyone argue about the toilet seat? If you like it down, just put it down and then go on your merry way. It's not really worth it.
I'm having such a good time with you. You just reminded me of another joke.
Please joke away.
Those jokes about how many whatevers does it take to change a light bulb?
Yes, I do.
So how many coaches does it take to change a light bulb?
How many?
Well, it really depends. Does the light bulb want to change?
That's a good one. Okay, well, then I have a joke about change too, is that men marry women hoping that they'll never change, and we always do. And women marry men hoping that they'll change, and they rarely do.
Yes, and that's not a joke.
Such unrealistic expectations going in the first place. That's why it's so important that we are grounded in who we are. Like, what's the song that we're singing? What's the note that we're humming? What is our own sovereignty? What's important to us and what's not important to us? Otherwise, we literally sell our dignity down the stream in an attempt to be right.
So I want to talk to you about
both people are right.
Yes, always both people are right, because every person is living their own story. And that goes back to the story. There is no non-story. Like, you are living your own life and you have a story, right? So as much as we want to let go of stories, we also choose stories that serve us, and that's part of life. I want to talk about something you said, just let it go, let him figure it out, or, stop arguing. But the danger that I want to, caution people against is bottling it in, is doing it the wrong way, because this is what we do as women, right? Maybe
We
not
do.
me, or maybe not me or you, but
Well, most of us are taught that we're too dramatic, or we're too much, or that those emotions are inappropriate, instead of that those emotions are actually a part of a living being.
right.
Like, trees don't have them, humans do. Dogs don't have them, humans do. We have
When
emotions.
somebody once said, there's no such thing as good or bad emotions, they just are. And I was like, no, but don't you know there's bad emotions? Like, I really fought for this real belief that it has to be that there's something bad, but no, it's so amazing. It's just an experience. And
Maybe you were on the conflict channel when you were having that argument.
I was very young. I was very young. So yeah, the danger of bottling it in, because we do try to make peace. Some of us are really into appeasing and making sure that everybody is okay around us. And, I'm talking from experience. I'm a very nice person and I want everyone to be happy around me. Those are like my two big goals in life, right? It's dangerous to think that if I just don't say anything and I hold my tongue and I pretend that I am not saying anything and I don't care, or blah, 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 right? Like, there's such a negative type of energy there. There's like, zzz, right? You could feel it. Like, I'm holding my tongue. I'm not saying anything, but did you see how he just dropped the box on the floor? Right? Like, oh my goodness, there's like 17 eyes on you. And I didn't say anything. I was so good. It's not going to get you anywhere. So
what
that's
do you
where,
recommend?
what do I recommend? Well, my approach is bringing God into it, because any situation, any conflict, any lack of clarity is always going to unravel itself when you bring God into it, because God is truth and God is peace and God is light. You turn light on in a dark room and you will see where you're going and you won't bump into things, right? When you connect to what does God really want, like, bottom line, what is aligned here, then rarely do you have to control the situation. You no longer have to worry about things that aren't in your control. You no longer have to hold on to, making sure that things are done right or that things happen or whatever, because God is taking care of it.
I've heard God called good, orderly direction.
Yeah. God is everything. So it's one of those amazing things. I called my business ConnectedForReal because when I was asking people, what is my superpower? People were saying that I'm very connected.
Mm-hmm.
That I have this like direct line to God. And we were talking about this before we went live. I just talk to God when I need something. This is just how I grew up. So to me, this is very natural, and I don't see it as a skill. Like, I don't think of it as something that I had to work on. And so I didn't think it was something I can help other people with, because usually you think of work as having to do something hard, right? Like, you have to learn something in order to do it, and it has to be hard, and it has to take time, and you have to, it has to be work.
Well, by the sweat of your brow shall you earn your bread. That's indoctrinated into us from a very young age.
Yes.
I
And
mean, it was happening in the Stone Age that they said that, but never mind. We're still learning it.
listen, I I had this discussion with my husband, the first baby we had. I was pregnant with my first, and he was learning to be a rabbi, so he was not working. I was the one working. And I'm very, very grateful that I was able to support him in his learning and his studies. And so one day I had this joke. I said, I don't remember if it was before I gave birth or after, because I had the epidural and I didn't really feel much. And so I said to him, like, listen, if you don't have to do your part of the deal, then I don't have to do mine. Right? Like, I didn't have to go through childbirth pain because they gave me the epidural, and you didn't have to work hard because your wife worked for you. So it was a cute joke. But yeah, I believe that, by the way, I just had the baby 5 months ago, and this one I had at home with no epidural. And I think that is reflective of the inner work that I've done, very much, that I still have the same experience of, like, almost no pain and a very good birth, but
Mhm.
now it comes from within and not from without.
Mhm.
That's really amazing. Like, I just realized that while telling it to you, is it
Amazing.
really was. It's been 15 years in the making, this, like, process of becoming more, um inner, I don't know what to call it, innerly
Inner
guided.
peace.
Yes, inner peace is good. I like that.
There was also just another thing I wanted to share that came to my mind. So, one of the pieces of work that I do when I work with women on a year-long basis is I work with distinguishing career from work. So, work is something that we do like a task list. It's something that's just needing to be done. Washing the dishes, going to do our job. It's what we do for money, or it's a task that needs to be done. And that's how we distinguish work. There's also a stream of thought like, if you love your work, you never work a day in your life. I call that
Mhm.
career. If you
Yes.
love your work, then it's called your career in the way that I distinguish it. And career is what we do for self expression. And career is also how others know us. So
Mm.
if we're in the community as a Red Cross volunteer, and that's how people know us, the fact that we're also a school teacher on the side may not make a difference, because the school teacher is the work, but where our passion is and our self-expression is as a Red Cross volunteer. So that's how I distinguish, because I think it's difficult for people these days with the changing face of employment. People think that they have to love what they do in their day-to-day work. Well, I don't advise that we hate it, because it hurts our morale. But I do advise that if you're doing a work day job that you get paid for and support yourself and your family financially with, then you develop your career, because your career is what makes your heart sing. It's your self-expression in the world. And it's ultimately how people will come to know you and how they remember you. Like my friend Ruth Steinfeld, she's my mom's hairdresser for many years. For over 40 years, she was my mom's hairdresser. And she's the one that introduced me to transformational work through the Landmark Forum. But she was a hairdresser, and she also became a public speaker, talking about herself as a child who was hidden during the Holocaust in a French farmer's family with her sister Leah. And how people know her is as a docent at the Holocaust Museum in Houston. They know her as a speaker who's been the voice for the 1.5 million children that were murdered in the Holocaust. She's the grown up child, the survivor, who's spoken for them. They know her as the person that tells her story and has grown beyond her story to be not a victim, but a contributor. And she recently received the French Legion of Honor Award, which is the highest award that the French government gives
Wow.
for her work in both surviving and being a contribution to others by teaching about the Holocaust.
That's
And
so beautiful.
Yep. I don't even remember how that ties back to the original story.
I'll tell you how it ties back, because I was telling you about my process of becoming, connected for real. I was a graphic designer for 15 years. And one day, when I was pregnant with my number 6, I had this aha moment that, since God is limitless and what I want is to do his will, then why don't I just ask him to align my work and my career so that I don't have to be in both, right? Like, don't have to separate myself. And so I started praying for that. Show me what you actually want me to do that will put the two together. And what am I here to contribute that will also pay the bills? And how do I make that work? And I want you to show me step by step, because you're the only guide and you're the only one who could show me, and you see it from above and you know what's going on, right? I was like very clear on what I wanted. And that was the beginning of my complete transformation from graphic designer. I left everything and I started coaching, and then I niched into marriage, and I niched into marriage for women in business. And it's like, it's so amazing for me to sit there and just watch my own transformation from that moment where I realized it's possible because God is limitless. He didn't.
I appreciate your faithfulness.
Thank you. And that's, by the way, what I've just realized this week. Part of my clarity is that I was hiding behind graphic design in order to reach advising people. I loved making peace with people. So my favorite clients were the ones who had like a family business, and the father said this and the mother said this and the kids are in it and they're all trying to take sides and they're taking, a piece of the pie, and everybody wants to have a say. And here I was, the graphic designer who was putting everybody's ideas in order, and everybody's lives were just like put back together, and like peace in the home and all this great stuff. They loved having me around. And it wasn't for the graphic design. It was for the fact that I was really powerful in the energy I was bringing and in the work that I was doing. But I was never willing to be anything but the graphic designer, because I was really scared to be, open about that. And that was the biggest, the first aha moment was, okay, I don't have to hide behind graphic design anymore. If God wants me to be an advisor, then I'm going to go be an advisor. Which, by the way, is called a coach these days. I had to come to peace with that. My biggest aha moment this week is that even though my specialty is marriage, and marriage is the way I reach people and am able to help them unravel everything else in their life, it's really the, bringing God into their life that is what I really do. Right? So that was a big aha moment.
That's a pretty interesting coaching niche.
Yeah. But it still very much has to do with marriage and with everything else. I'm not like pivoting yet. I don't feel like I have to leave the marriage part in order to do the, bring God into your life part. But I suddenly feel more comfortable saying it and talking about it and not hiding behind it. Maybe because it's so not acceptable or like just weird to be the one to say like, I want God's presence in your home, right? Like I always felt very
Why not?
intimate.
I often call people and I actually say to them, I really want you in my program. I know that I can make a difference in your life. I know that the community, having a community of nurturing sisterhood where we talk about everything, where you can show up however you are and be accepted, I know that will make a huge difference in your life, because most of the women that work with me are directors of a nonprofit, or they are global directors of some large organization, or they're physicians with their own practices. And they're people that don't find the time in the way our culture is set up to have girl time. But throughout history, we've had girl time because we have not been working. We've been nurturing in the home, and we've been raising the children and taking care of the animals. And it's not like that anymore. But
It's not.
having membership in a group of women and that social time and our innate spirituality, which women have connected to the cycles of the earth, being connected to other women and having that, plus our body senses of humor about various things that we usually won't discuss with the opposite sex. All of those things are part of being a woman, and they're part of making our life worth living.
Yes. Yes. It's so powerful because, we're women working in a man's world. And that's the problem, I think, is for so many women, is they think that they have to play the game the same way like the men play the game. And men are very isolated. They climb up and they end up alone on top. And that's the man way to do it. And women actually fly in flocks. Like they really thrive when they're part of something bigger and when they have that support from each other. And that's something that I'm also building in my
All
community.
woman.
What?
I said, instead of all men, I said all woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
So powerful, so powerful, because that's getting in touch with your feminine side is really understanding that you cannot do this alone and you should not do this alone, and it's actually not to anyone's benefit if you are a loner.
Not at all. Well, we drop my retreat link up there because I noticed I'm getting super hungry and it's almost lunchtime for me. And I'm going to Houston today to celebrate my dad's 87th birthday.
Wow. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'll
Okay, so
I'm ordering the cake from Three Brothers.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, say it out loud for the people who are listening on the audio.
Sure. My website that you can go to learn about my retreat and the work that I do in the 7 days is called businessaspleasure.com/retreat. businessaspleasure.com/retreat. You may want to know why I called it Business as Pleasure is because that world that you were describing of the hierarchical, top-down, barking orders, masculine world, it just wasn't for me. I didn't like it. I didn't fit there. It was no fun. And so I said, I'm tired of business as usual. I'm going to go for business as pleasure. Let's do something that makes us happy. Let's do something that we can put our spirits into. Let's actually play instead of working. And that's where the name Business as Pleasure came from, is when you're tired of business as usual. Because as working with women leaders, what's really important to me is that women don't opt out of leadership just because the cost is high. Find another way to do it. That's why so many women are in business for themselves, in my opinion, is because we want to do it differently. We want to run our businesses like we run our families, with love and lightness and fun and contribution. And that's where it all came from. It all started because I just didn't like working in that system. It didn't work for me.
I love that. I love that you said that, also because the whole thing that I'll put up my link too, so you guys can go, ConnectedForReal.com/retreat. And that is for women who are in business, because as you just said, don't avoid leadership because it comes at a cost. So my thing is, it doesn't have to come at a cost. You don't have to choose between your marriage and your business. You can
not at all.
Yes, you shouldn't have to choose, and it's not fair that that's the message that's being, given to us. So
we live in a time where really we can, just the way you build a business team, you also have to build a team at home.
Yes.
Like maybe you need somebody else to go do the grocery shopping. That's okay. It's below your pay grade to do the grocery shopping. It's beneath your pay grade to do the other tasks around the house. You can do the things that you're called to, your self-expression, your leadership, and let other people do those other things for you, just like you would in your business. There's no reason to be falsely modest and say, I have to do the grocery shopping. No, not really. You can make the list. You can even make it so it's the same thing every week and you don't have to remake it. We're living in a very different time, and it calls for different role models. So I'm glad that we're talking about that as role models.
Yes. I love it that you named you gave the topic of the eyes of love, because it's really not even, it's not putting on the pink glasses and seeing something
Not
that's
really.
not. It's, pink glasses is like, see what's not. Like, just paint, make it look like it's pink, but really reality is not pink, but that doesn't matter. The eyes of love is like, your eyes are, that is exactly what is there. And there's nothing filtering or anything else. It's just a choice. You're choosing love and you're choosing to bring it in. And I love that.
Yeah. Who brings the love? Raise your hand. I bring the love. And eventually they sing along with me. I bring the love.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I enjoyed this conversation. I had so much fun having fun. You're awesome. Thank you.
And telling jokes. I love that.
Yes. This is one of the best podcasts yet.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I do intend that at some point in the not distant future, in the next year, I will be married. So I can come back and tell about my transformation. And I think I'd like to call on you. I think you have some real wisdom to share from a perspective that's not far from mine, but not the same as mine. And I feel like I could learn a great deal from you.
Thank you. I bless you that I should be invited to your wedding. Well, I bless myself. I bless myself.
So sweet. I love that. Maybe it'll happen in Israel.
There you go. Okay, guys, listen up. We're looking for you.
That's such an amazing thought. It really is.
Yeah. I'm inviting myself to your, there's a beautiful Spanish saying. We used to live in Venezuela, and there was this saying that they used to say when you say, oh, it's my birthday or whatever. So they say, oh, may we count them together, and something like that, until 120, and that we should count them together. And I thought that was just so sweet. So
I'll say it to my dad tomorrow.
Yes, and he should have the merit to be at your wedding next year, or within the year.
God willing. That is so sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all for listening to our fun conversation.
Everybody. I look forward to meeting you sometime, maybe at my wedding. Who knows?
Yes.
Bye, Bat-Chen.
Bye.